Mr. Speaker, I thank you for giving me an opportunity to support this bill by my good friend, Senator Pogisio. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a very timely bill. I get very excited when I see bills which gives work to CCs in county governments to be able to do. I also get very excited, Mr. Speaker, sir, when I see potential for revenue generating activities in county governments. Mr. Speaker, sir, before I commented on this bill, I had to go and talk to my dear friend, Senator Pogisio, because I would wish to bring in a few amendments to this bill, because technology will really help this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, one of my pet peeves is seeing the way these companies in Kenya, particularly the big multinational corporations, paint buildings which are built along the highway. Mr. Speaker, sir, the minute you leave Nairobi and you get to Kiambu, every building you find there has paintings, either Safaricom, either Airtel, EABL, either SportPesa, or even Betika. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is being done in a very awkward way, and county governments are losing revenue, which they should be able to get to improve on our position. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, I highly support, because I see an avenue where even county government can use location-based data analytic technology to be able to clearly indicate that in this county headquarters, these are the areas that we have designated. And those are some of the amendments that, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would wish to introduce, of course, in consultation with the sponsor of the bill, to be able to ensure that this bill expand further to a position where we now pull in technology to be able to ensure that in every county, before you introduce any issue of advertising, the physical planning of that county can be able to say, this is our spatial plan. This here is where we have a lot of traffic. And in this traffic, because we don't want anything to be able to hinder any sort of development, we can be able to designate specific locations, Mr. Speaker, sir, as areas where we could have a 20-meter billboard. Because right now, Mr. Speaker, sir, what is happening? If you look at Nairobi, for instance, in every roundabout, there are huge billboards. Nairobi is doing very well. I know Nairobi Women Rep came up with a project a long time ago of adapter light. That was the first time, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I was able to see a county or then a city council benefiting from outside advertisement. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, will now give other county governments an opportunity to be able to tap into this market, which research currently shows in Kenya that earnings are far much low compared to what all these governments, local governments can be able to tap into. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the campaigns, all of us, including myself, spent millions paying for billboards. You know, that is the only time that you can actually say somebody in that business was benefiting. But how much of that money was going into the county government? Mr. Speaker, sir, to have a billboard in Nairobi and also in Narok during the campaign period is 130,000 shillings a month. In fact, the first month is about 200,000 shillings. But the subsequent month, the figure reduces to about 130 because there's no cost of printing. But out of that figure, how much did the county government of Narok get? Mr. Speaker, sir, we need to be able to look at all opportunities which are out there and ensure that we increase local revenue collection. Setting up clear areas and guidelines of how these advertisements should be brought in place will be able to help us. Mr. Speaker, sir, with the current technology that we have in this world, which Narok County can benefit from tapping into, the CEC in charge of the transport sector can be able to sit and clearly say, we are losing revenue here. So that when then a marketer comes in and say, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I want a license to be able to put up an advertisement, you can then clearly say, these are the only positions which we have left. This business, Mr. Speaker, sir, of these companies coming in and getting into county headquarters and just erecting a huge billboard in front of a very, very expensive commercial property is really being done because we do not currently have a bill that can be able to control. Mr. Speaker, sir, Nairobi County as it is, for me, has been one that I've been observing and learning quite a lot on how we can improve. Because when you go to Kirinyaga County, for instance, Mr. Speaker, sir, you know, when you enter, and this is also happening in my county of Narok, you will find advertisement after advertisement. The town is literally littered with the streams of signs and signs and signs with no order. In fact, from time to time, you'll find that the county governor or the county government has gone in and put a lot of excess. Why not then move forward? And this is where Senator Poghisio will need to consider this and say, let us add a provision in this bill that will clearly give the CC in charge plus the Department of Physical Planning an avenue to say, this is the plan that we have for Narok Town, for instance. Let us put these areas and designate them clearly. Then by so doing, Mr. Speaker, sir, even the revenue, you know, we've been having these problems where county governments are overestimating their revenue collections or underestimating their revenue collection. With this bill in place, and when the CEC in charge and also the Department of Planning is in picture, they can accurately determine that in terms of advertisement revenue, this line item in our budget, we estimate to collect X amount of Kenya shillings. Mr. Speaker, sir, when you look at the statistics out there, it shows that the advertisement sector in Kenya has been growing up with a rate of about 8.5%. In fact, by 2016, the entire advertising sector had raised to about 1 billion shillings. This is now projected that on a yearly basis, it will continue increasing at a rate of 8%. Okay? 12? It's about 12 billion. I got some information from the back door. But by 2017, Kenyans spend about 217 billion on advertisements. How much was spent through outdoor advertisement? It is now currently projected that by 2021, Mr. Speaker, sir, this annual advertisement revenues would go up to about 3.2 billion shillings a year. We need these counties, not only Nairobi, not Mombasa, not Kisumu, not Nakuru or the major cities. We want now to figure out in all these advertisements, in all these counties. Because even in Turkana, people drink beer. EABL, of course, will be competing maybe with Keroche or maybe another company. Or people in Turkana also use mobile telephones to be able to communicate. All these companies we have. So in each of these counties, and one of the things that I like that Senator Poghisio has left out for each and every county to be able to come up with their own legislation on how to be able to, to control the advertising. It will help us not set so high standards that we cannot be able to reach. We will be able to live within our means and also encourage more people to come. And one of the things that this bill will discourage, and that is why I'm standing here passionately talking about it, is this issue of where these big corporates decides, today Narok we are going to paint it SportPesa. Tomorrow we are going to paint it Safaricom. Tomorrow we are going to paint it this. It's so ugly, seriously. It is, I'm not saying that those companies' colors are bad, but I'm just saying we need law and order. Mr. Speaker, I think on the issue of penalties and also the issues, first on the issue of how long a license should be granted. I think Senator Pogiso should consider making it annual. Because when you have a situation whereby you advertise for a period of time and then after that, then you now change, you get a new license, it may not really put in proper order. Every business community, or rather any business entity, applies for a license for a whole year. So I would request that Senator Pogiso consider encouraging people to apply for licenses for the entire year so that it can become a business. I see opportunities where young people can venture into graphic designs. And then we also encourage local companies to come up with advertising companies. And in fact, the CC in charge of lands should give priority to local companies, particularly the youth and people with disabilities, to be able to set up these advertising companies. Then by so doing, they will ensure that they continue protecting their environment. Mr. Speaker, sir, the day I will see all those advertisements which are put in the main street of Narok out, and a signboard after another one is the day that I'll believe that the county government is making money. But as we speak right now, if today the distinguished senator from Nairobi decides to rent a space in one of the beautiful malls that we have in Narok, he will just go there and say Sakaja Enterprises, without any order. I think what we have learned, and I have to commend a company like Magnet, because I've seen what they have done. Magnet Ventures, you give credit to where credit is due. I've seen that in some places they would put up a very big advertisement, a sign, and in one signage, all the businesses in that building, or rather, will have an opportunity to lease space out. Now, I think Magnet, we can learn from there, use technology, so that we can be able to at least ensure that not only the businesses are the ones benefiting, but also the county government, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, on part 4, Section 2, it is important for us to add GPS reference to the site. When you now introduce the element of using technology, with GPS, you can clearly, on any, just get into Google at any given time, put in the IP address, and you will be able to see what sort of advertisement is put in there. Mr. Speaker, sir, on part 2, 6, here we might want to consider the sites which are the kind of advertisements which are on high demand. For instance, Mr. Speaker, sir, at every given time, let's say, for instance, in Narok, we have the Safari Rally, or maybe the, Rhino Church. And we know that these are advertisements which are put out there for a particular cause. In Nairobi here, you have the Stanchart Marathon. You might want to consider adding a provision, Senator Pogiso, on this bill that clearly states that when designated the sites to be used for advertisement, the CC will be able to clearly indicate that at this area, it is for high demand of high, and then areas where there is high traffic, charge more, so that we can continue be able to know how much each of the county government can be able to make. And finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would finalize by re-emphasizing the need of tapping into these companies that use location-based analytic data so that it is easy for county governments to know how much revenue they are supposed to get. You know, Mr. Speaker, sir, when you get on Google, at one point, there were issues of privacy being raised. But Mr. Speaker, sir, in countries that use addresses, like I remember when I was living in a place called Concord, I lived in a street which was 160 North Beacon Street. That was in Brighton. And you can enter this on Google, and the moment you enter it on Google, it brings up a picture and it shows that street. This is what technology will help us. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, with those many remarks, I support this bill, and I hope that my good friend will consider the suggestions so that we can not only put in order, but also make some little money. You know, it's all about money. If our counties can be able to generate more revenue, then we can be able to reduce the amount of debt that we have in this country. The reason why we are borrowing a lot is because you'll find counties, and this is with a lack of a better example, like Tana River, for instance. A few years ago, they were only collecting 26 million shillings a year. Yet they were being allocated over 3.5 or even up to 4 billion. So any legislation, Mr. Speaker, sir, that encourages county government to be creative in terms of revenue collection, I fully support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Wetangula Moses.